took to build this country and what it takes to live in this country. And I think Jim exemplifies hard work and compassion, and he really changed my life in a very positive way. We still get together. We play cribbage. That's one thing I've always enjoyed playing, and I didn't know that Jim liked to play. He never lets me win, but I guess I'm okay with that. He's got a lot more skill than I do. But I guess I'd like to close with just how powerful it is to know what Jim has done in his life. He's experienced a lot of difficult challenges, and he's overcame every single one of them. And I just think it's amazing that to this day Jim is still writing and publishing, and he has no fear. He wants to get out in the community and let everybody know what life is like, because we don't want that part to kind of diminish. So I want to thank you, Jim, for letting me into your life. I know that was really big for you, really big for me, and I'm just happy that I could make another friend. So thank you, guys.
Ray's story. Ray Strike is the person that I'm doing mine on. He's actually not able to be here tonight. Hopefully they get to watch this video online later. Before I read my excerpt from his story, I would like to just kind of talk a little bit about my experience. So Ray is by far one of the most intelligent individuals that I've ever had the opportunity to get to know. And through the Life Story program, I've been able to see him, see how his younger self transformed into the person that he is today at 84 years old. So it's really cool to watch his story build year upon year upon year and still see themes throughout his entire life. That's been my favorite. But he's probably the most curious individual that I've ever met in my entire life as well. He's always questioning. Always wondering what's new, what's more, digging deeper. So I've never met anybody that curious or intelligent in my entire life or gotten to be a friend with somebody like that. So it's been really fun and really unique. But behind all of his intelligence and all of his degrees, and behind the thousands of books that exist in his room and in storage, I know he's got thousands in storage, what really exists is a truly compassionate person, and that's who I've gotten to know. I've really gotten to know him as a holistic individual and as a very compassionate person, and he's been able to give me that perspective. So again, before I read my excerpt, I'll kind of talk about a little bit about Ray's life story. I organized it kind of based off of an essay that he wrote when he was pursuing a master's degree in theology. He went back to get a master's degree when he was 68 years old, I believe. So you can see how he loves to learn and he never stops learning. But I based it on an essay he wrote. It was actually called The Loneliness of the Third Base Runner. So in this essay, in the story that I've kind of put together for him, it outlines three main bases of his life. So first base, second base, third base. First base kind of talks about his family life, enduring the Great Depression with his family, and then going through being drafted to the Korean War. Second base talks about his academic career, which was probably one of the most influential for him. Being in high school, he never thought about going to college. The war kind of changed that all for him. He realized how smart he actually was. So he planned to work in a factory the rest of his life, and now you can see his life revolves around education. He was a professor, again, at Berkeley when he was 68 years old. So, and then third base is focused on his social activism. He kind of turned into social activism as his pastime and as his job and career once he was done with the education. So now he remains on third base, working to get home through social activism. You can see that he's pursuing peace and justice. So the excerpt that I have chosen to read kind of reflects his mission for peace and justice in the world and within humanity. So the excerpt that I've chosen to read first is from his undergraduate studies, so he was about my age probably when he wrote it. He actually wrote for the Pointer, which is pretty cool for any, well, Josh, you know, Pointers, anybody who went to school here knows what the university newspaper is. So it's titled The Student Speaks. Ray had the opportunity to have a bi-weekly column in the university newspaper, The Pointer, speaking on current student and worldly issues and applying his thoughts, many thoughts on peace and justice. In one column, he reflected on human differences, relationships, stereotypes, and prejudices, describing, "For some reason, we humans tend to notice the differences that exist between members of the human race. We speak of many divisions in human society, but fail to consider our common desire for happiness, our shared dislike of loneliness, our common wish to love and be loved, our common need of food, shelter, and clothing for our bodies, our shared striving for knowledge of the universe, our equal demand for activity and rest, our shared hopes of a peaceful world, our common desire to express our own peculiar ideas and feelings, and our common displeasure for pain and sickness. Must the human race be forever divided? Can we never realize our common brotherhood?" The ideas he reflected in the Pointer foreshadow a larger part of himself and his future curiosities. As an undergraduate student, Ray began his journey for discovering reasoning, a desire to understand complex ideas, and a quest for peace throughout humanity. So you can see just with this excerpt that he had huge ideas even as an undergraduate student who was writing those ideas that transformed through the rest of his life. So reflected in another section of his life that I titled Playing with Ideas. You'll see why I want to read how that same big ideas concept kind of kept going through his life. So after returning from Eau Claire, Ray visited an injured friend at the university hospital where he chanced upon a woman named Midge, a first-year graduate in social work who was also from Stevens Point and a family member of Ray's injured friend. Sometime along the day, he asked her on a date, one of the first dates of his life. "I was so shy. After spending 3.5 years plus summer sessions at Central State College in Stevens Point, why didn't I ever date? This was one of the many challenges of my life." So he embarked on his first serious relationship, dating Midge for a number of years on and off. While dating Midge, Ray went to the Catholic University in Washington, D.C. for 7 weeks for research to prepare him for his dissertation, but he was so infatuated by Midge that he didn't do much of anything. She held a large part of his heart, and although their relationship eventually ended, Midge provided Ray with one of the most insightful comments about his personality and his own self-understanding. She told him, "I always thought you were a hard worker and that you worked too much, but I was wrong. You don't work at all, you just play with ideas." The passion, a hobby, and a lifetime career for Ray, remaining an important part of his everyday life. He always thought he became an academically focused because he was so much of an introvert. But he later realized in life that it's the exact opposite. It's very human to have an intellectual drive. Possessing a deep intellectual drive defines the reason why Ray has always been looking for profound enlightenments and new insights, reading new material, uncovering and creating new theories, and playfully examining fresh perspectives as he did in writing his PhD dissertation at UW-Madison on ideas of individualism. So those were just 2 excerpts from his story. You can see it's a little differently set up than Josh did Jim. So you can see how all these stories are unique in their own way, which I think is really cool. But through these excerpts, you can see the strong intellectual drive that Ray possessed and that he still possesses, and the desire that he has for creating that commonality for one another, for creating peace, and for understanding one another. Sharing his ideas with me, Ray has really empowered me to become a more compassionate person. And kind of as Josh was touching on, in such an individualistic society and with our millennial generation, it's kind of hard sometimes to step back. It's kind of challenging to remember that we should be reaching out to other people and learning from other people. And Ray has really opened my eyes to that. So not only have I been able to establish a really unique friendship with Ray through the life story, but I've been given a fresh perspective on life. And I just want to thank Ray. He's not here again, but I want to thank him for sending his personality, his ideas, and his friendship. And I'd like to thank Lynn for all of her hard work and for creating such a special program, and for me and everybody else involved. So.
We have one more excerpt here. This is a short one. Very good. Jean's daughter Barb is here. Jean wasn't able to get here tonight, but because she can't be here, we're going to reenact this at Harmony for her and her friends. So she's not going to miss out completely.
Okay, my mom was 97 when Ashley started working with her and recording and trying to make a timeline is what we helped her do, because Mom would talk about kids and then switch to great-grandkids and then back to grandkids again. And Ashley, who did not know our family at all, had to kind of try to put this in order so it made for a nice book. But anyway, we found out a lot of things that Mom had really told us before too, as she was telling Ashley the story. But this is one of the little things that had come up before Ashley started writing. In 2006, Jean joined Barb, my sister Diane, and Diane's husband Dave on a bus trip to Canada. Once they arrived in Canada, they hopped on a train and that took them to a railroad ride to Agua Canyon and Naknek Island. The trip was filled with all sorts of new sights and adventures, but for the kids, the adventure started before they had even left. In order to cross the border into Canada, each of them needed to provide a copy of their birth certificate. So Dave, Diane, and Barb didn't have trouble getting theirs. However, getting a copy of Jean's birth certificate from the courthouse proved to be a little bit more difficult. It wasn't that the courthouse didn't have a birth certificate on record, because it did. The trouble was caused by the fact that Jean's birth name wasn't Jean Cecilia King. Her birth name was Johanna Frances King, a fact her children never knew until that very day. The kids were all very surprised, but Jean didn't think much of it. With a laugh, she remembers that she used to like to change her name every once in a while. She didn't like the name Johanna, so she changed to Jenny or Jenny, but then after a while she didn't like that either. So she changed to Jean, and that's the name that stuck. She also liked the name Cecilia better than Frances, so she changed her middle name, which is why the book ended up being called Jean Cecilia, because that was when we found out what her middle name was. But on all her marriage certificates and everything was Jean Cecilia. So from Jean Cecilia King, she became Jean Cecilia Boyce. But we enjoyed working with Ashley. She got to know all 6 of us, Mom's children, by sending us excerpts and having us read it and say, well, what do you think about this? So between all of everyone giving her that information back, we all got to know her well, and even my mom a little bit there. So it was a good experience for all.